Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Boogs, and I am the Chief of Staff here at the California Institute of Integral Studies, or as we say, CIIS, and I'm also a proud alum. It's my pleasure to welcome you here for a conversation on the future of integral education at CIIS and beyond, featuring our President, Brock Blomberg, and our Provost, Kathy Littles. As you may know, CIIS is a nonprofit university located at 10th and Mission here in San Francisco, and for more than 50 years, CIIS has led the way in transformative education. You can learn more about our academic programs and public programs like this one at ciis.edu. As many of us are descendants of settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those forcefully brought to this continent, we at CIIS must recognize and never forget that our university's building in San Francisco occupies traditional, unceded Ramaytush Ohlone lands. If you're interested in learning more about Native lands, languages, and territories, we encourage you to visit native-land.ca. For the safety of our staff presenters and to help us all care for each other, we suggest you wear your mask while you're here in Namaste Hall. Tonight's conversation is being live streamed to our online audience and recorded for our podcast, allowing us to provide accessible content to a wider audience. If you would like to watch it again or share it with your community, it will be available starting this evening on the CIIS Public Programs YouTube channel, and we will also feature this conversation on our podcast in the future with an accompanying transcript. You can find it at ciispod.com or by searching for CIIS Public Programs on your favorite podcast app. We will have a question and answer after the conversation tonight. For those of you watching live online, you can post your questions at any time using the web form link just below the video. For those of you here in this room, we have posted QR codes, I think on the walls there, throughout the room that you can use that same link to find that form. You can use your own device to post a question for Brock or Kathy. And if you don't have a device with us or prefer to write in question by hand, our ushers will be happy to provide you with a card and a pencil, kind of the old-fashioned way. Now, let me introduce our presenters, Brock and Kathy, and then we'll get right to the conversation. Brock Blomberg is the president of CIIS. Before arriving at CIIS, President Blomberg was president of Ursinus College in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, and dean of the Robert Day School of Economics and Finance at Claremont McKenna College in Claremont, California. We also served as the Peter K. Barker Professor of Economics and the George R. Roberts Fellow. Earlier, President Blomberg worked as faculty at Wellesley College and was a visiting scholar at Harvard University's Weatherhead Center for International Affairs. Kathy Littles is the provost of CIIS. Previously, Provost Littles served as Dean of the School of Consciousness and Transformation and Director of the Transformative Inquiry Department at CIIS before leaving for St. Mary's College in 2019. She brings to CIIS many years of leadership experience in higher ed and a firm understanding of the CIIS mission and 7 commitments. Her tenure of experience also includes faculty positions at the University of California at Davis, Berkeley City College, and the College of Marin. Prior to her academic career, she served as the Arts Education Coordinator for Monterey County, as well as the Cultural Funding Program Coordinator for the City of Oakland. Kathy earned a PhD in Cultural Studies from the University of California at Davis, an MA in Anthropology from San Francisco State, and a BA in Anthropology and Art from St. Mary's College of California. So please join me now in welcoming my colleagues and friends, Kathy and Brock.
Thanks a lot, Richard. That was such a wonderful welcome. You're such a great spokesperson for CIIS.
Yes, he is.
Absolutely. Well, I'm delighted for this opportunity for us to chat. I always love having my office next to Kathy's, so now we get a chance to have no walls between us, right, as we talk a little bit. I think we talked a little bit in the beginning, just sharing what drew us to CIIS, and maybe I'll ask you first, your journey a little bit, how you came to be our provost.
Well, it was a long journey, but one that I'm just so incredibly proud of, and really shows that if you're open to the possibilities, anything is possible. So I came to CIS, I believe around 2006, at a time in my life where my mother was very ill, and I had literally just finished up my coursework at UC Davis, and my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And so the bottom line, the doctor very gently told me, you need to make some preparation because she's not going to live for very much longer. Well, she ended up going into remission, living 3 years. But in the meantime, I had to get a job, right? To support myself in preparation. So I applied to 2 jobs. One for the city of Oakland running cultural funding, and there was an opening in the School of Undergraduate Studies for a core faculty member. Yes, very strong school. And I got them both. I didn't get the core faculty position. I was asked to be an adjunct. So that began my journey at CIS. I'm so grateful for the experience of being an adjunct. I was an adjunct for 10 years here at CIS. And as time progressed, I was always a pretty good administrator. And our wonderful Vice Provost, Michelle Ng, asked me to apply for the director position for transformative inquiry, which was at the time, I believe, our only online program here at CIS. So I ran that, became the director, wonderful faculty, and that's where I really honed in on who we are, our mission, our values. The older I get, I'm very much tied to, I have to be in a place that has a firm mission that I can relate to. And in our case, our wonderful 7 commitments as well. So I grew into that. I consider this place home. The only reason why I left, I became Dean of the School of Consciousness and Transformation, loved working with the faculty and the students. It was just time for me to have a new experience, and I'm so grateful that I did, to go out and see what else is out there, how other universities are run, and that has really honed in on, I think, giving me really good skills in terms of what it takes to be a provost. So I came back because I love this place. I love the students. I can relate to our mission and our values. I'm somebody who did not succeed really well in a traditional kind of banking school, reciting, taking tests. I was somebody who enjoyed the experiential, who enjoyed the arts, who thrived under a model of an education, an integral education, really, of mind, body, spirit. I think I, as a staff member and as an administrator, and I'm attracted to this place because really it is about showing up in all the fullness of who you are. And that isn't, some universities may say that, we actually do practice it. And that doesn't mean that we're perfect, but certainly when I walk through the front door, I can believe in who we are and what we do. I love our programs, and there's plenty of time and space for growth because that's what we do here. And so that's my journey. I've been incredibly honored to take this role as provost. And I was telling Brock, many times our admissions department, they give tours in the building and I can see the students pass outside my window. And the first question they ask is, what is a provost? What do you actually do? And so I can talk to them about, you know, running the academic programs, working with our faculty, working with our non-instructional departments for them. And so it has been a humbling position. It's been great working with you, Brock, and I'm learning every day. We really teach here at CIS, you are a continuous student and learner, and that just never stops. So in that respect, I am where I need to be. That's what I like to say.
Well, I want to applaud that. That was brilliant. And it has been such a pleasure being your partner here as president. I'll tell a little bit on you. Our first time when I met Kathy, she was not yet a member. Well, she had obviously been at CIIS, but she was at another institution.
Yes.
And I was trying to convince her to maybe come back as provost. And I noticed that she kept referring to CIIS as we.
Yes.
We do this and we do
Yes.
that. And I just love that you still felt
Absolutely.
so part of the community.
Mhm.
And we're just very fortunate to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And actually, you know, in my journey, I also really appreciate that you told the story a little bit about where you were in your life and how this really was a great spot for you for your own growth. Similarly, for me, that was the case. What really has drawn me to CIS is the people.
Yes.
I mean, there is something about this community that is like no other community that you're ever going to be with. And I think it's because everybody is here for some common purpose, even if they don't agree what that common purpose is.
Mhm.
And I had so much fun listening to the community talk about what even the word integral means, because there's a lot of wrestling with that. And I think when you're in a community that really asks great questions,
Yes.
they may not always have the same answer, but they're there wrestling with the great questions. I mean, that says a lot about what you're trying to do. And so I was really drawn to this incredible community of people. I was really drawn, as you said, to the mission. You know, a lot of universities, a lot of organizations have a value statement, or they'll have a mission statement. And we have those, but we really call our value statement commitments.
Yes.
So that speaks much louder and prouder about how what we are trying to do is we're taking a stronger stance.
Right.
And I think that speaks to everything we're doing. And I'm having the time of my life here in this year and a half. I would not have predicted that
Right.
when I first came, but it has been a learning experience in such a great way. And I'll leave with this. If you go to almost every single university, one of the words they always talk about is transformational. We are transformational. I have never seen anyone prove transformational except for here at CIS. And I see transformation happen in each person who's transforming. I see that we're looking to transform society. I see that we want to transform this planet. And I think that is the kind of place that anybody who wants to get jazzed up about would get jazzed up. So that's really what drew me here. And I've just grown to love the place more, as you say. It's really been a lot of fun so far. And I appreciate public programs for inviting us to talk a little bit about that today. So I think the topic we're supposed to talk about a little bit is what integral education means today and beyond. And so I think what I'd like to do for a couple minutes is just talk a little bit about education in the United States. And then you can correct all the mistakes I'm going to make, Kathy, because I know you have a lot better answers for these things. But I think it's important for us to really understand, if we're going to say where CIS fits, what the whole marketplace for ideas looks like right now. And there are some serious challenges in being a president at a university or being anyone associated with the university, because there are a lot of headwinds. One, and I'm sure everyone knows this, but there's the cost of education. You know, costs are going up. I think if I compare, say, a decade ago, private school universities were around 26,000, and now they're more around 32,000 on average across the United States. And that's adjusted for inflation.
Right.
So it means if a student is graduating with a graduate degree in psychology, the average amount of debt a student has nowadays, again, this is not CIS statistics, this is United States statistics, is about $60,000. So that's a real big investment for people. So you have that going on. And at the same time, we have a decreasing enrollment. We've seen now there's about 5 million less students, I believe, than there was a decade or so looking for education. So that makes it more challenging. And actually, the number of competitors in higher education is actually growing. Do you have any idea how many colleges? Does anyone have any idea how many colleges and universities there are in the United States? Would you guess it to be more than 1,000?
Yes.
Yes, it's closer to 4,000. So you can imagine if there's 4,000 universities and everyone's trying to grab their attention, that's kind of difficult. And then the other challenges are funding. The state and federal governments have put less money into education than ever before, and it's not easy to get people to open up their pocketbooks. And then the final challenge is that there's a changing demographic at universities. There's a lot more non-traditional students or students from different backgrounds, and so not all universities are ready to handle that, and they don't know how to meet students where they are. Not like we do here at CIIS,
Right.
but those are some of the real challenges in the world of education. But on the other hand, and there's some joke about a two-handed economist that's out there, but on the other hand, for the area and the space that CIIS is working in, there's a lot of real positive data. And you can see I'm using a lot of my economics here and trying to use data to describe things. But in the area of mental health services, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has predicted about a 25% increase in jobs in the area of mental health services over the next decade. If you look at online education, while overall education is falling, online education has gone up by about 2 million during that time. And then in the space of mental health, there's far less stigma than there ever was in the past. So the interest for people to actually, look for mental wellness and be able to provide services is greater than it's ever been before. And then the last thing I think that is really exciting on the positive side and the overall marketplace for ideas is that there's a lot more interest in what we would call interdisciplinary or integrated education than ever before. And universities are trying to offer the sorts of things that we're offering. And service learning is such a bigger piece. So I think while there's a lot of challenges, really in our niche, where we are distinctive, where we are that avant-garde institution, we can really actually see a lot of positivity for the future and the way education is. So
well, that makes a lot of sense. That also means that we're perfectly situated for past, present, future of education in the United States. I think it's interesting that you started off with cost because of provosts, and as I'm working with chairs, I'm always cognizant around time to degree. How are we accepting students? How long are they taking to complete their degree? Because the students, people are very savvy now about education and their time and frankly their funds and how much it costs and how when I graduate, am I going to pay back all of these loans? And all of this is good, right? Knowledge is power. That means as a university, we have to offer programs that are timely, that meet the person where they are. I always like to say, come to CIIS if you are ready to explore the full self, right? If you're ready to hold up the mirror and ask, who am I and what do I want to contribute to the world? And part of that is, how am I going to pay for this? What programs are out there that'll support me and the work that I want to do in the world? And I think we have met that for decades, frankly. I think we have always been ahead of the curve, and a lot of universities are catching up. When I went to, my undergraduate and graduate, they weren't doing wellness. No. They weren't doing whole person learning. We were doing that here at CIIS decades ago. And we've only gotten better. And I think we've gotten better in several ways. And one of them is expanding the circle, being more inclusive, being more intentional around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and meaning it, right? Because our students and our faculty and our staff hold us accountable to that. And so nothing but opportunity on the horizon. I think that one of our strengths is the complexity and the creativity around our academic programs, right? I can't tell you the amount of times that I have heard from students, I've been looking for this program for years. I finally found it. I can now show up, whether it be our integrative health or expressive arts, sit down, be led in a space, a cohort space by faculty where I'm seen and heard. And while we may think that is an easy thing to do, it really isn't. So that people find their place and their passion. Our faculty are the engine, right? They are the mentors, they're the innovators, and they are the creatives, the therapists who really are not only inspirational teachers and amazing scholars, but have the ability to lead a student from classroom to opening up to what I want to contribute to the world. And that is a skill that has to be done with head and heart. And I never lose sight of that at CIIS, that this is a place where we hold spirituality at the center. We don't define it for you. That's part of the exploration, but it provides us a platform to lead with love and empathy and compassion in all the work that we do. Whether you're a therapist or an anthropologist, right? Whether you're in women's spirituality or you're getting your counseling degree. It's all head and heart first in your kind of spiritual grounding. And I think that's integral education. That's integral education. That's a big piece of it.
Well, I loved, first off, just hearing you talk, I can hear the passion. I can hear that feeling of our incredibly talented faculty who care so deeply about our mission and what we do. I remember when I was asking you in one of our conversations to explain a little bit about what was so exciting about CIIS, you used the word, it's an invitational.
Yes.
And I really love that because everyone's invited to come and explore. And we do have these incredibly complicated and creative programs to do that. And that's unique. In terms of organizing a university, I'm so used to seeing universities organized as a arts and sciences, social sciences, humanities. We have 3 schools that are expected in the future. The School of Undergraduate Studies, and then one that focuses on psychology and health, and one that focuses on consciousness and transformation. And that I think speaks loud and proud about this invitational that we have. I want to highlight something that you said in passing, because there was so much to unpack in what you just said. You talked a little bit about, because it's so important to us, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know that this has been something the university cares deeply about, and we've invested in a whole division there. And I know your experience in the past, and you've actually brought on some real, faculty resources around that. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, how that's unfolding and how you see that we could be a radical leader in that area.
Sure. Before I answer that question, I do want to say that one of the reasons why I came back, Brock, and I may not have told you this in person, and this is the perfect time in front of this audience, was because you had Rachel Bryant in the role of Chief Diversity Officer, VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at CIIS. And that Rachel reported to you as president, the role reported to you, and that this was not just a tokenized position at CIIS, which is typical in a lot of universities. Believe me, I had the role before at another university, lack of resources and so forth. And so that was a shift for me. That positioned me to see that we are cognizant and aware of the role and the importance that it plays for our community, and expanding our community. And I think that's really critical at CIIS. Now, when I came in, of course, that role was already established, but I also knew, because I knew many of the faculty, although there were many that I that were new since 2019, I knew that what was lacking And the faculty would embrace here faculty development, support, and resources. So I created a dean position, Dean of Faculty Development, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Dr. Danielle Drake, who was or still is a professor in expressive arts, a fantastic professor, great program. And what Danielle has done is created an office for faculty support. So now we're doing writing retreats. We're putting together workshops for faculty in terms of their own professional development. That's so critical because many people assume that once you get the faculty job, you just do, your research and your teaching, but we all need professional development. So she's doing that with the faculty and really listening to the needs at every point in their career. For new faculty, we have a great mentoring program. We all need mentors. Eventually, I'd like to see mentors for every stage in a faculty life, early, mid-career, and when you're headed towards retirement, because retirement is great, but it can be scary for a lot of people. What am I going to be? What am I going to do afterwards? So the mentoring part is absolutely critical. And then just kind of the nuts and bolts of partnering with me and being a good listener, a good steward, and a good leader for our faculty here at CIIS. And I know they appreciate it. I know they appreciate the level of decision-making, many of which are hard decisions in a timely manner. But for me, that is the one role that's been a game changer. It really has. And I believe, good things to come for the faculty. I'd like to see us grow. I'd like to see us, and we will be more robust with our recruitment and retention. Retention of faculty is huge. They have options, right? And especially our faculty of color. Who often in the academy, this is just as in CIIS, it's a hard job, right? There's a lot going on there for all faculty, but I'm going to specifically say faculty of color in the classroom and the dynamics and the complexity of what that means. And Danielle's providing excellent leadership. So that and I told them this on my first faculty council meeting. I'm the provost for everybody, right? Not just for some. Provost for everyone. And I know that they heard me and expect me to be a good steward for them and to hold faculty governance in a way in which leads us to the next 10 years.
Well, I can tell you, I hear it from everyone in the community that it's really having impact and it's allowing us to live true to our commitments around DEI. And also, I'll just add even more of a pat on your back, because I think you're also doing it in the student affairs area.
Yes.
I know our Dean of Students, Freilani Agalapai, has really emboldened her group too. So when students have needs and are looking for more resources and more capacity building, that we're doing more now than we've done in the past. So you talked about growth in what you were just saying. And I do think we are at this point, when I was said in the beginning, some of the challenges and some of the opportunities where there really is an opportunity. We're at this inflection point where we could be leaning into more growth.
Yes, for sure.
And that's got to be done through some kind of a strategic thinking. And we're working our strategic plan. One of the things that I would love to get your thoughts on is we are such a sort of cool, edgy, avant-garde San Francisco community, right? That I know a lot of people are looking for, but getting access to that across the world isn't always so easy. First of all, the cost of living here in San Francisco is astronomical. And also, that may not necessarily work if somebody has different, needs with their family or their life. They may not be able to be here. So I know we've talked a little bit about new programs and also online programs.
Yes.
So I'd like to get a little pick your brain a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, because I know as president, I'm always happy to look for yes.
Yes.
But I'd love to know what you see are the potential opportunities and challenges with online education, with what we're trying to offer.
Yes, well, you know, I ran online education for a while, looking at Professor Monturi from Transformative Studies. I really believe, and I'm going to shout this from the mountaintop, CIS has been doing online education since 1994. Okay, we are not new at online education. When the country had to pivot to online education, and a lot of them were struggling, a lot of colleges and universities were struggling. I wasn't here, but we had programs like Transformative Inquiry that were already online. Other programs in School of Consciousness and Transformation that were already online, had been online, frankly, for decades. Help the rest of the school transition to online education. And so we have been doing it for a long time and doing it really well, right? So it isn't just this notion of faculty showing up and lecturing online for 2 hours and having the students take notes and I'll see you on Thursday type thing. But we practice presence, we practice creativity, we practice innovation. That can be done and has been done online. Our graduates leave here, and this isn't just me making it up. They have reflected back to me, that was the best education I ever could have had. The online platform for us has opened us up globally, right? So now, and we have students from Africa and Australia and Europe who come to CIS and can now have the CIS experience online. And part of that is also being participants in our intensives. Most of our programs hold intensives if you're online. You know, you meet together for 3 or 4 days during the semester here in San Francisco. You get to know your faculty, you break bread together, you start your classes. And so there's that intimacy that we have built in to our online programs here at CIIS that I think has helped in the overall experience for our students. And they leave transformed. And that can happen and has happened for a long time online. We have many programs that are still face-to-face and they're extremely successful, no plans in changing, right? Especially our counseling programs, the intimacy. And somebody said that, you know, part of being a counselor is reading the body language, seeing, feeling the energy as you're speaking to clients. And we're holding on to that because that's who we are, and that won't change. And we are a university, CIIS, that can and has held both. And I think that's part of the beauty of integral education is in that in both platforms, face-to-face and online, you can show up as a whole person, right? You can deliver a holistic education where mind, body, spirit are centered, even if you're half a world away, right? Or if you're just sitting right across from one another. Not every university can do that. We can and have done it here, and we have a great track record of doing so. So in that respect, so proud that we made it through. You know, this large pandemic, which devastated us all. I think we have come through stronger. I think we have had the opportunity to kind of reinvent who we are and who our audience is, and it's expanded, and that's exciting. While still staying true to our identity and who we are and our history, which I think is so critical.
Well, and I think you raised a lot of really good points that it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all model.
Right.
For certain types of education, you know, and I've seen this, we've all seen it in the workplace, right? Some people want more distance, and then sometimes it's important to have those moments when everyone clusters. And I think the intensives is a great way that we do that for a lot of the stuff we do in the School of Consciousness and Transformation. I also think, like you said, for counseling, a lot of the, you know, that the high touch
Yes.
opportunities are really important.
And before you go on, I want to just give a shout out to our clinics.
Okay.
Because that is the hands-on experience that our students get here at CIIS before they become, therapists. They are in the midst of becoming therapists. We're doing works at our clinics that are really community-based here in the city and county in San Francisco. I think one of the things that I love about CIIS is there is this kind of community grounding here around Mission and in our neighborhood. And I think that our presence, I'm looking forward to that expanding in terms of health services and counseling. Literally everybody just a couple of blocks away, there are people who are in need of our services. And our faculty are primed to support and nurture our students through what it means to become of service to our community, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a CIIS kind of a way of operating. How are we of service beyond ourselves when we leave the building? And I think in every program, every aspect, certainly in our academic programs, that's what we lean towards.
And it's what the world needs right now.
Yes.
If you look at the broken space a lot of us are in, and again, we're seeing there's a lot of demand for that. And we didn't even talk about our China program.
Right.
So there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
I think I got a heads up that we're moving and we're transitioning into the Q&A part, if I understood that correctly, unless I misunderstood that cue.
Or we can keep talking. Yeah, let's keep talking.
Oh, I see. So I misunderstood that cue.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
since you mentioned
Yes.
our MAPS programs, our China programs, we do offer certificates in human sexuality and in psychedelic scholarship as well. And so there are opportunities for people who are either don't have the time to become students, full-time students, to also get the CIIS experience through these certificates as well. And we're expanding. And I always say, kind of, let's pump our brakes and do this right, get our market research, get our data together, get faculty on board, want to hear from everybody on what direction we should go. But expansion is it's slow and steady is the name of the game.
Well, I think that, it's that energy. There's this constant sort of tension on the creative side, because there's always so much energy around that.
Right.
And so I appreciate
Especially
you.
here.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate your ability to be a person running the orchestra.
Yes.
The maestro.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's important also to point and I appreciate you bringing that up, in addition to our schools, we do have incubators, if you will, for a lot of other ways that you can be connected to CIIS, whether that is through, CPTR, whether it's through our MAPS program, and even just public programs. We have certificates that you can engage with. So there's a lot out there. And I think these are ways over time we may find that we want to continue to expand and look. And so it's like I said in the beginning, I'm having a lot of fun getting a chance to watch all the great work that our faculty are doing and all the scholarship that our students do. I loved being at graduation last year and listen to the topics that our dissertations that our students are looking into. So we really are extending the boundaries of human wisdom. So that's exciting.
Definitely. And I always want to add that our student services, kind of our non-academic departments like IT, student affairs, financial aid, the library, all run so beautifully that is absolutely critical to the student experience and by extension, the faculty experience. Because if those things are not aligned, it undermines all the work that we're trying to do. And so I just want to kind of acknowledge and thank all of the deans, all of the staff who really hold CIIS front-facing together and really exhibit the warmth and the inspiration and the creativity to for our students and for our whole community. And everybody knows, both have to be running at an optimal rate, right? But, and as provost, everybody kind of looks at me as the academic person, and I am. I also hold kind of the non-academic offices as well, pretty much all of them. And they have to be optimal, right? They have to be in support of our community, and they do a really, really wonderful job.
I think you really raise a great point. This goes back to some of the challenges of running a university. Is you think a university is a bunch of chalkboards and rooms that people go and then they all break and go back, but there's so much support that's necessary to be able to do it. And the expectation of students now is much higher than it's ever been.
Absolutely.
When we talk about our commitments, I know a lot of students, when they come here, their expectation of their classroom experience is almost like you're no longer on planet Earth.
Right.
And I mean that in the best sense of it, and we aspire to do that, but obviously everyone's coming here with some humanity, so we don't always reach that. But that does mean, we have to be able to provide resources for IT. It does mean, particularly if we're going to encourage, a much more diverse student body, groups, more minoritized populations, we need to meet people where they are and be able to understand and be culturally competent and provide resources if students need those things. And so that's a very different model of higher education than maybe it was when CIIS started in the 60s.
Certainly, and it's exciting to see an uptick in veterans that are attending CIIS. It's very exciting. Certainly our students that have a disability have increased here at CIIS. Even, and the students are amazing, because one of the things, and maybe this just has to address the students that we attract, but very vocal. Many of them are activists. So when I get emails, and our Dean of Students get emails about body diversity, frankly, and other types of diversities, we better be able to respond to that and have answers and support and resources in a timely manner. And thus far, we've been able to meet the moment, and I expect that to expand. As you open the door more, as we should, the more diverse populations come in, and we have to be ready. You invite them, you gotta be ready, right? You're not kind of putting things together as they're at the table waiting for the meal. Right. And so I think that we are a work in progress. And certainly I'm very excited about the expansion of the student population that we have. And certainly if you live outside of the Bay Area, you still need access to all of these offices and answers and resources, and we ought to be able to meet that.
100%. And I do think that this is a big commitment of the university, and we're here, it's an educational university, so we're going to get educated ourselves.
Yes, of course.
When we need to learn more. In our current strategic plan, we're centering it around spirituality. And I've also heard the word spirited action. I like both of those. These are great ways to describe that the special sauce or the honey that feeds our hive. I'm curious to know in thinking that through whether it's in the classroom or whether it's co-curricular experiences or whether it's the history, how do you see both spirituality and spirited action exhibit itself in who we are?
There is no one size fits all here at CIIS. It really does depend sometimes on the school. It may depend on your department. It may even depend on your particular faculty and how they want to bring that into the curriculum and support that journey for the students. And that's the beauty of it, right? That we have a lot of students that have trauma around their spiritual journey as they come in the door. And how do we meet that? How do we address that? We have a lot of students that are, devout in their spiritual and religious practices. How do we meet that? How do we support that? And then we have those who are just a blank slate. What does this mean? That's why I'm here, right? To explore that. And we ought to be able to meet all of them. And I think that we do. I think that we do. I thought that the exercise around the strategic plan has been one of the more CIIS exercises that I have experienced since coming back. And it has resulted in, I think, a very accessible, inspiring, and exciting strategic plan that we've already kind of socialized throughout the university, and we hope will be approved soon. But certainly, there have been wonderful discussions that have resulted in a plethora of ideas and ways in which spirituality shows up in our lives. And that's CIIS, right? That is the secret sauce, as you like to say, that the journey of discovering who am I, grounded in spirituality, can be a very uplifting and transformational experience for a lot of people. And we want to continue that.
Well,
continue that.
And I appreciate you talking a little bit. So some of this may seem a little insider about our strategic plan, which we'll put on our website when the trustees endorse it, which we have an expectation that they will be doing in the next upcoming months. But I do think it is indicative, this process has been indicative of the kind of collaboration with a common language and purpose, where not everyone always agrees, but everyone is invited to engage. And that's been really, I think, a pleasure to watch the community get together and watch some of the trustees actually engage in conversations. And I see some of the trustees are here in the room, which is wonderful to see as well, to see them support CIIS through so many different ways. I'll say what's exciting also from a personal level is knowing that the seeking of meaning and purpose, and looking outside of yourself for that has been something that I knew in one specific tradition growing up. And in the year and a half I've been here, I've learned, my heart's exploded in a whole new way to explore that. And I think that that's indicative of the kind of experiences I know I've heard a lot of our students talk about during their journey, or the faculty or the staff. So I do think it may not be programmed in the same way that you're going to take like a comprehensive examination on spirituality or something like that. But I do think because it's so part of our DNA and so part of how we're thinking creatively to put programming in, it's going to be something that everyone will wrestle with. And it's not a comfortable conversation for everyone because of the points you're making. People are coming from some of their own traditions, and they may take with that a lot of understandable concerns for what these words mean and where that comes from. But it's neat to see the university look at this. I think that's really kind of what integral education is, to keep wrestling with all of these things, while at the end of the journey, you'll have a PhD or a master's degree or a BA.
Agreed. I was with a provost colleague last week, and her university is in Texas. If she's watching, hello. She said, one thing about CIIS is you own your mission and identity. And I think that's our reputation. And I'll take that any day of the week, because it's something to be proud of, to own, right? To embody and to be inspired by. And I think all of us, faculty, staff, students, administrators, ought to think about that. I think of it often, and I will share with everybody in one of our executive leadership meetings, Rachel Bryant says, we are only here for a season, right? We're stewards of this place. We're not going to be here forever. We're not going to live forever. But while we are here, to, once we enter that front door, to really understand our mission and our purpose and our history, because it's beautiful. We have a great history here. And to really embody that and lead with love. And that's what I try to do every day. Sometimes I come up a little bit short because I'm human, right? But that is really the embodiment of what it means to be here, and to be of service to all of you. And the faculty feel that way as well, because I believe they are of service to teach our students. And I think a lot of our students leave with that narrative and understanding about the next step in their lives.
You know, in trying to summarize a lot of what we're talking about, because you know, there's so much here, but it may feel like it's all over the place at the same time. There's something that's really distinctive.
Yes.
And I can tell you, going back to the point of the marketplace for ideas, that's not always the case. If you look at a lot of colleges and universities, it's really hard to know the difference between one university and another university a lot of times.
Yes.
And so if you're really trying to describe to a person what's special about you, you know, to say we have small classes or we have big classes, you know, those are not always that meaningful.
Yeah.
You know, we believe in transformation, as I said.
Right.
Unless you can demonstrate that it's transformational education, it really doesn't go that far. And I will say here, I really appreciated your comment about we all own this mission.
Yes.
You know, we're all carrying this torch. This is something that Hardish Chowdhury started.
Right.
This will be our 55th.
Yes.
And it's not called double nickels. What's the Emerald? It's the Emerald anniversary that we have coming up at CIIS. And I know that the original incarnation is different than it is today, but at the same time, we are still following a lot of those same traditions by mixing a lot of East-West philosophies, by celebrating not just the philosophical component, but also the healing component. But it is a little different than it was. But at the same time, I think we have held on, and I would like to believe you and me as the two of the leaders here, that we continue to be the kind of trustees and stewards, because Rachel's right. You know, we only have these jobs for a season, and what's going to be exciting is what happens during that season.
Yes.
And I think
it's an open book, isn't it?
Open book.
Sure.
But it's a distinctive place, and I think
sure
that's
is.
why when we're summarizing about the what is integral education, how it works in the marketplace, and what the future is, I think the future is very bright for us and where we are in that spot.
I agree. Very exciting.
All right.
Yeah.
I saw another cue. I'm going to ask again. This time I got it right. All right. So if there are questions, I think Dr. Boogs will be asking us questions.
And if you came in late and didn't hear the announcement about the QR codes on these beautiful pillars, you can pose your question that way or raise your hand and someone will bring you a little card and a pencil the old-fashioned way. So here's a question from somebody here in the audience. If you were with someone who didn't know what integral education is, how would you describe it and articulate its benefits?
I'll start by saying this is going to take about 45 hours to try to really capture. And what I love is I've tried in different settings to answer it, and I love whatever I say, someone will raise their hand to refute what I say about it. I think a lot of it is really capturing this holistic, full experience. Mind, body, spirit. It's about trying to capture disciplines that are in constellations with each other. So it's not so hyper-focused on, learning something that isn't beyond its space. And I think that by doing that, you leave more connected to people around you. So it's not just your own consciousness. Now you are connected to a broader sea of souls or individuals.
I think it's a lens from what that gives us a way to view the world. Mind, body, spirit, knowledge, wisdom, compassion, love, whole self, spirituality. That is integral education. And the fact that there is no firm definition, but it encompasses all, says something about the human condition, because we're complex, right? And I think that's a good way to describe it.
She obviously did a better job than me. It's not that it's a competition,
No.
but I do love the fact that as universities, we try to encourage people to be lifelong learners, right? And a lot of times when you get your terminal degree, it is a terminal degree and you're done
Yes.
with it. What I like about integral education is it does expand, and it is something you need to wrestle with your whole life. And so that's
Yes.
another area that's fun.
Whole self and whole life.
Very good.
Yes.
Richard, you want to tell me what I got wrong there?
Well, no, I think I'm gonna give you a A minus. Keep you humble.
Right.
So someone in the audience would like you to go a little bit more personal and tell us a little bit about your own first experience or awareness of integral education.
Why don't you start this time? I start, so.
Yeah, I think, I started speaking on it a little bit in that I struggled in the traditional university setting. I'll put it like that. I was not a good test taker. I was not a good note taker. It was, in a large sense, as I look back, a very traumatic experience for me. It was not until I got to graduate school where I felt that I could be vulnerable, and that figuring out knowledge and inquiry didn't mean that I had to take a test. It meant that I can enter the work, the scholarship, with my artistic lens, which is very strong because I'm an artist at heart, and that I can reach knowledge and wisdom with that notion that multiple ways of learning and understanding was accessible to me. And so in large part, integral education is about accessibility too, right? And finally, I hit my stride. Frankly, when I was getting my PhD, I was pushed by my parents to pursue the doctorate. I'm so glad that they did. And I was embraced at UC Davis, frankly, a huge UC system, to really explore the arts and my creativity in my scholarship. And so it can happen. And yet I think it was a journey, and it wasn't easy for me, quite frankly. The whole educational process and system was hard for me. Nothing came easy, nothing. And so I can speak from experience. And also being a teacher here at CIIS, where I assign many articles about integral education, I tried to hold my classes in an integral education way, down to sitting in a circle and seeing everybody and listening and critiquing and being creative. That's integral education, where everybody has a seat at the table. And inquiry is so important. And that was something that I developed here as well as a teacher. So I hope that's helpful. It's been a journey. In 10 years, it may be something different. It probably will be, right? But that's been my own personal journey.
I appreciate the journey way of describing it. So for me, it's been a partitioning of things in your life that you're sort of taught by society or different family structures to be partitioned. I was a foster kid who was adopted into a home that had a very strong spiritual component, not much of an intellectual component.
Mhm.
So I was always not really understanding and ashamed of one side and excited about.
Interesting.
So when I went and decided to let my nerd freak flag fly and got a PhD, you know, when you're in a PhD program, particularly in something like economics, you learn more and more about less and less. And so in the limit, you know everything about nothing. That's a joke. So, you know, there's a partitioning of a spiritual part of who you are.
Sure.
There's a partitioning about now I'm going to be an intellectual. And then, you know, you're going to be develop a family. So everything is kind of not connected. I think as I began to get matured, and honestly, it's when you get hit with some real life trauma and you go, wait a second, this partitioning thing isn't really working the way I thought it should. You know, that's when you begin to say, let me reconstruct this. And so more of my middle-aged time did that part of the journey where I really recognized the value of connecting those. And then a lot of my research was much more interdisciplinary, much more economics and politics and philosophy. In fact, I worked in a program that wasn't interdisciplinary. And I know that's not integral, but there's a relationship there. And so then I think combining that and recognizing that it's okay to be spiritual and not have, and it's okay to deal with real life trauma and mistakes and own those. And I think honestly, all of that happened, but a large part of this educational experience for me has been here at CIIS. Because I think this is a very accepting community for combining those things and not keeping them partitioned. Because I think too much of the time, if you keep them partitioned, you make such big mistakes. I would say if you look at some of the huge mistakes policymakers make about things like wars, and it's because they're made by people who, again, know everything about nothing. Like they've learned in their space, this is what you're supposed, these are how you're supposed to answer these questions. And I think to the extent we can open up everything, our heart, mind, spirit to these things, then maybe we will look outside the box and maybe often that's how we'll grow. So for me, a lot of that has really been being exposed to this incredible community. And I've had the pleasure of many times taking Robert McDermott out for lunch and saying, hey, Robert, can you teach me some stuff out of books?
Yes.
So it's just been
Sure.
a pleasure to have all of that.
That's great.
Wonderful, thank you. In a time where inclusive and diverse educational opportunities are under threat across the United States, how can CIIS be both a model and a great activist advocate for both integral and diverse education across the country?
Well, I touched on it a little bit. I think we have demonstrated through our organizational chart, frankly, that we are indeed a model for other colleges and universities. First of all, we embrace this notion of DEI work as being complex, as being heart-focused, and we're a work in progress. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, and we have a huge responsibility. And so having these roles, and I can shout this from mountaintop, at these colleges and universities, and I'm talking specifically about these DEI roles, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Every university has them. Most of them are not well funded, not well resourced. They're there because that's the expectation. And it undermines the work. It doesn't create safety for people in those positions. I personally know people that have these positions at colleges and universities that need escorts to their car because of the violence that is perpetrated upon them. And so we can and are, I think, an example of holding this role up and properly resourcing it. So Brock has the role in his office. And as I said, I have a similar role in my office, and we all work in tandem. But most importantly, it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just on them. And you have to mean it and practice it and really embody that. And so it's everybody. It's our students, our faculty, our staff, really grappling with these very complicated human questions, what it means to be human, respect. And we set the expectation of these things are not going to be acceptable here at CIIS, right? We are going to treat each other with love, respect, compassion. You are going to see me as a whole person because that's what we do. And we will learn and grow together from there. And I think it's a work in progress. Listen, we're working with faculty in their curriculum, how to have more inclusive articles, books. You hear what I'm saying. So there's work to be done everywhere, including me as the provost, right? I have my own edges, and I admit that. And yet I think that we can continue to grow and acknowledge our edges and not sell something that is not true, right? So when students come, they don't feel like there's been a bait and switch, right? You told me you were X, but this is not my experience in and out of the classroom or, at CIIS. So this is hard work, everyone. We are in a very difficult time in our history. All you have to do is turn on the news. This is hard work, much of it grounded in trauma. And all we can do is continue to push, acknowledge, and do the work. Gotta do the work. I always say that. Have you done your work? Well, I don't know what that means. Go figure it out. Head and heart, right? Go fix your heart. So.
Well, great. I mean, we're so lucky, by the way, to have you leading us in so many ways, Kathy, and I appreciate
you as well.
I don't know that I see those edges that we're talking about.
I have edges, everybody.
But I think just to highlight a couple more points. One is we are doing some innovative things in the sense that we have a Center for Black and Indigenous Praxis. We started a Black psychology project. So we're really trying to focus on the needs of, practitioners who are African American, so they understand how they can be better therapists and do some of these things. These are path-breaking areas. And because of that, our Rachel Bryant, who we've talked about several times, our Vice President of DEI, is actually giving many talks at a lot of these conferences, because this is a way to go out and demonstrate that we're actually doing some really good work. But to your point, there was an article that was in the New York Times, I think it was last week, it was 2 weeks ago, 2 days ago, I'm getting it's 2 something ago. And what was interesting to me, and the article was talking about how diversity training and organizations isn't really knocking it out of the park. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting to me is I can't tell you how many different trustees came to me and with concern because they care. They wanted to know how we're doing and what we're doing differently. And first off, that's the first thing you hear. Often I've been at other universities, and what you usually get are forwards from the Wall Street Journal about those other sorts of things. So first, the priority's in the right place. And secondly, I think what we're doing a little differently than a lot of other places is it's not, while it's important and to acknowledge our mistakes and to train ourselves better to be more culturally competent, what we're really trying to do is make this, as you said, everyone owns a piece of this. It's matrix. We all are trying to work together for a greater purpose, and we're asking questions about how we can be better as an institution, not necessarily only how I can be better as an individual. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important, because sometimes if it's just asking, and we need to ask those questions about our unconscious bias, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it can't stop there. Right. It can't be, well, I understand what I'm doing wrong, I'm going to work on myself. It needs to be how we as an institution come together and can build on all your great leadership. Yeah.
And we can't be afraid of these conversations.
No.
There's just no space for that. Our students expect more, our community expects more. We have to lean into it, jump right in, okay to make mistakes, but we have to continuously have these conversations and do the work. Do the work.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hi.
How important are community partners in fulfilling the CIIS mission? What kinds of community partnerships are we forging and or seeking, and why?
I'll go first on this one. You know, a couple of years ago, there was a question about the use of space and geography in the community, and what would it be like if we moved away from our Mission Street campus? And I know that we've had different places in San Francisco, and people have been asking questions. What about other locations? One thing that has become very clear to me in the conversations is how connected we are to the city of San Francisco, and how important that community is, and how in so many different ways that's part of our DNA. So I think we are part of that community. We are part of that culture. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is we definitely have a heart for our local community. And we've done that through things like our community mental health program. That's something that we were certainly before COVID more easily connected to. We're still working on it, but it becomes more of a challenge. But there's just an outreach to try to allow for therapy for every person. And anyone who lives in the city of San Francisco knows the challenges in mental health that we have, and the affordability challenge for many people. And we have a mission to try to allow for those who may not always have easy access to mental health. So those are areas that I know that our history has been focused on. And those are areas I'd like us to get even more focused on as we move along.
And our clinics as well.
Yes.
They're definitely grounded in the community. Yeah.
Is compassion at the heart of integral education? And how can it be taught in order to heal adversity from polarities?
How do you teach compassion? That's such a great question. You know, I think first we lead by example, that we organize and operate in the world that demonstrates human compassion in everything that we do, especially when people aren't looking. And I think people feel and observe that. I think compassion can be taught. And I think that's a lot of self-inquiry, right? It's a lot, we do a lot of self-inquiry here at CIIS. That's self-work, that's a me issue. But I can see it in your actions as something that can be modeled for me as aspirational, right? So I think it's all of that and more. And I think compassion is at the root of a lot of what we do. I mean, we're training therapists and healers and counselors, and at the core of that is compassion. We're training activists and community organizers and nurses, and we have, you know, a slew of people who work for the fire department here who are students here at CIIS. And I think the compassion aspect is so integral to the work that they do. And we also need and do model it through our operations as well. So I think it's critical to integral education, integral learning, the integralness of this place. And I think for some it's hard, right? Because life happens. But I think that doesn't mean that we don't hold it in our core.
I really like what you're saying about how we model it. I do believe if you have these commitments that are centered on our values, we need to be showing it in a lot of our ways. It's a practical thing that I notice in many of the ways that we meet. We begin with a reflection in the beginning. And often that reflection is to show compassion for some of the challenges that are going on. That is not a normal way that most educational institutions meet. They don't always begin by acknowledging space and the need for compassion. I think one of the things I've been excited for us to work on is our communications. When there is an awful event that happens, we want to get out there in front and share that we are feeling that burden that the rest of the community is. And honestly, it's something that we even talk about in the leadership that we want to do even better. Because sometimes when you talk about things, you really have to be careful in the way that you talk about things. That's a really important way to demonstrate compassion. And that means we need to bring in, all of our strengths so that we can do that. So I think that just in the way that we meet, just in the way that we talk, just in our values, that is critical. And then people feel it. So people, it's a palpable thing that people will see demonstrated.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And having been in the community with you now for a while, I can say the compassion that you both model is really transformative and healing for us, those of us who've been here for a long time. And to see the relationship between the two of you is really, really delightful.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm lucky, I'll say that.
So am I.
I think we all are. Here's the last question. We saved the best for last.
Hey, yes.
What is bringing you both joy right now?
Oh. Go ahead, Brock.
Well, I would say there's a long list, honestly. But I would put at the center of it my wife, Nikki. I don't know if I am still a newlywed. It's been a year and a half, but I'm fortunate to have her and the rest of my family, my kids and my extended family and her kids. That brings me joy. And then the other piece, I wasn't lying when I said I'm having the time of my life. I had a recent trip with some old president and professor friends, and we were getting together. And then people are always like, well, you're at that place, CIIS, how's that going? And I was honest. I said, this is the most fun I think I've ever had, because this is a community that is compassionate, that does have so much to offer. And it is distinctive. And so to have the privilege of working with the community, working with great people like Kathy and Richard and the board and so many, that blows my hair back.
I love that. Mine too. What's bringing me joy right now? Seeing Alfonso Monturi here with his wife, Kitty Margolis, brings me joy. These two have been so instrumental to my personal and professional growth. And to see you really for the first time since I've come back, both of you, just means a lot. So seeing Chris here, who stayed all day, Brandon Berger, everybody who's on the Zoom brings me joy, and seeing all of you brings me joy. Knowing that all of the sacrifice and love that my parents poured on me, they just loved on me. That's bringing me joy, because I know they're just smiling right now. And what a moment this is for me, for CIIS, to be with you and to have such an amazing president. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, but this notion that partnership and relationships matter to all of us, and all of the work that we do. And it's important for me that is solid. So that's bringing me joy. That's bringing me joy right now. So thank you. And thank whoever asked that question. It's such a lovely question. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Brock. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And I want to thank and appreciate our board members who are here tonight. Give them a round of applause. And finally, our wonderful public programs team, who did such a beautiful job. So appreciative. So folks here in the room, you're welcome to join us for reception.
I want you to meet Alfonso.
Oh, and I want to shout out to Shayna also.